I'm Ryan Mitchell, 29 years old, and until recently I thought I had a pretty good handle on my life here in Indianapolis. I've always been the steady type, the kind of guy who plans ahead, who believes in commitment. That's why my relationship with Sarah, my girlfriend of nearly 4 years, felt like the cornerstone of my world. We were just weeks away from our 4-year anniversary on July 25th, a milestone I'd been looking forward to celebrating. I'd even started making some tentative plans, thinking about a weekend getaway, something special to mark our time together. She's 26, a single mom with a 6-year-old son, and I've stepped up for both of them happily. I've always been there, not just as a partner for her, but as a consistent, supportive figure for her boy. It's a role I take seriously, one I've embraced with my whole heart. I provide a roof over their heads, cover most of the bills, and generally make sure their lives are as comfortable as possible. It's not just a responsibility, it's something I felt good about, something that made me proud. I built a life around them, around us. Then, late in April, my perfectly ordered world got a massive shake-up, and it all started with a misplaced phone. I was getting ready for work one morning, rushing around, couldn't find my phone anywhere. Sarah was still asleep, so I grabbed her phone, figuring I could call mine and track it down. Simple enough, right? I went to her recent calls looking for my number, and that's when I saw it. A name I didn't recognize. Not one of her friends, not a family member, not anyone I'd ever heard her mention. And next to it, a call duration, 12 minutes. 12 minutes is a long time for a work call you've never mentioned, especially with someone I didn't know. My gut twisted. It was a small thing, but it felt off, too long, too unfamiliar. My curiosity, which I now regret, got the better of me. I tapped on the call info and then, without really thinking, went to see if there were any messages between them. To my surprise, there weren't. Nothing. No texts, no previous calls, no history at all. It was as if this 12-minute conversation had been carefully scrubbed from existence, leaving only the bare record of the call itself. That's when the uneasiness turned into something sharper, a cold knot in my stomach. Why would she delete messages? Why would she hide a conversation from me? Sarah was still sleeping, peaceful and oblivious, or so I thought when I confronted her. I tried to keep my voice even, but I could feel the tremor of suspicion in my chest. Who is? I used the name from the call log. And what did you two talk about for 12 minutes? She immediately turned over, her eyes blinking open, a startled look on her face. Huh, nothing, that's just someone from work who I talked to on my lunch. They were telling me about their baby mama drama, and that was it. Her answer was quick, almost too quick, and that set off more alarms. Her voice sounded a little too casual, a little too dismissive for something that felt so significant to me. My mind immediately went to the lack of texts. If it was just a casual work conversation, why delete anything? People don't delete benign conversations. Okay, I pushed, trying to stay calm. Well, I've never heard about this person, and you have no messages or anything with them. You've never mentioned them to me before, so who is this? Why did you delete your messages with them? I watched her face carefully, looking for any flicker of guilt, any hesitation that would confirm my worst fears. She seemed to falter for a second, her gaze shifting away from mine. I don't know, she replied, her voice softer now, almost a whine. I know how you get and didn't want you to feel some type of way about this, but I'm sorry I deleted the messages. That was it. She didn't even try to deny deleting them, not even a weak attempt. She just admitted it right then and there. And then she tried to flip it on me. She tried to make it my fault, saying she was afraid of a potential negative reaction from me. That's why she deleted them, she claimed. Because of me. But that made no sense. It was a lie, a flimsy excuse that shredded the trust I had in her. Sarah had several male friends at her job previously, and she had never, not once, done anything like this with them. Her phone was always open, her texts always visible, and I had never, not once, said anything negative about her having male friends at work. I respected her autonomy, her friendships. This was different. This felt like a deliberate act of concealment, a betrayal. And then a whole host of other strange things started to click into place, things I'd dismissed before, things I'd given her the benefit of the doubt on. She works an overnight shift, has for 3 years now, but recently, after she moved to this new building where this dude works, She started staying after work for upwards of 2 hours, sometimes even longer. Her excuse? She was too tired to drive home and had almost crashed one time. Now, Indianapolis traffic is exactly a nightmare, and we only live about 25 minutes from her job. For 3 years, she'd been fine driving home immediately after her shift. Now suddenly, she's so tired she has to nap in her car for hours. It sounded like a convenient cover story, a way to explain her extended absences. I felt like an idiot, a complete fool for giving her the benefit of the doubt for so long. The pieces fit together with a sickening crunch. The deleted text, the mysterious phone call, the sudden exhaustion after work, the new building, the new coworker. It all painted a picture I didn't want to see, a picture of infidelity. But I was trapped. I felt it acutely, like a cage closing around me. She's a single mom with a 6-year-old. She can't afford to live without my support. Where would they go? What would happen to her son, who I'd grown to love as my own? The thought of leaving them destitute, of taking away the stability I provided, was unbearable. It felt like an obligation, a heavy weight on my shoulders. But this situation, this gnawing suspicion, it was eating me alive. I couldn't stop thinking about it. Every time she was late, every time she picked up her phone, every time she said she was tired, a fresh wave of nausea would wash over me. I was heartbroken, angry, and utterly confused. I'd never had to deal with anything like this before. I felt lost, adrift in a sea of doubt and betrayal. I tried to push it down, to rationalize, to convince myself that maybe it wasn't what it looked like. Maybe she was just being overly cautious because of some imagined fear of my reaction, even though I'd never given her reason to fear it. But the evidence, circumstantial as it was, kept piling up in my mind, a relentless prosecutor. For 2 months, I sat on my hands, stewing in my own misery, trying to find a way to make sense of it all without completely shattering the life I'd built. I appreciated all the online advice I sought, the support from strangers who gave me the clarity I needed, but knowing something and acting on it were two different things. I just didn't have the guts to end things at the snap of a finger. Then, on July 9th, a couple of weeks before our anniversary, I finally had an in-depth conversation with her. I knew I needed answers, real answers, not just her flimsy excuses. I sat her down, told her how much this was hurting me, how it was destroying my peace of mind. I brought up the deleted messages again, reiterating how I'd seen her text threads with other guys before and they'd all been benign. I wasn't some jealous monster. I was a trusting partner who was now seeing clear signs of deceit. She stuck to her guns. No physical activity, she insisted. Still just tired after work, still had to take those 1 to 3 hour naps in the car after every shift. I just listened, my heart sinking lower with each word. It was the same old story, barely changed. But then I pressed her on why she felt the need to delete the messages if it was all so innocent. That's when she finally cracked, just a little. She said that I would have reacted differently because this dude was trying to flirt with her. Trying to flirt with her. That was a new detail, a dangerous one. My blood ran cold. Why did you not shut him down immediately and tell him you're in a relationship? I asked, my voice tight with a mixture of anger and despair. It was the obvious, natural thing to do if she was truly innocent. Her reply, she said she did. But her words felt hollow, a fragile defense against the growing tide of my suspicions. If she shut him down, why the deleted messages? Why the long phone call? Why the sudden need for 2 hour naps in the car? It just didn't add up. Every explanation she offered only deepened the chasm between us, making me feel more like a fool. The stupidity I felt was unreal, a burning shame. It was as if I'd been scammed of everything to my name, left with nothing but a shattered heart and a crushing sense of betrayal. I needed to figure out what came next, but the path ahead was obscured by a fog of grief and confusion. I just had to bear with it and grieve, and find my way through this nightmare. The weeks that followed that conversation were a special kind of hell. I'd always considered myself a rational man, a problem solver. But this wasn't a leaky faucet or a car that wouldn't start. This was my life, my heart, and the well-being of a 6-year-old boy I loved, all wrapped up in a knot of lies and betrayal. Every morning I'd wake up with a dull ache in my chest, a heavy blanket of dread suffocating me before I even opened my eyes. Sarah, on the other hand, seemed to float through life, oblivious to the storm raging inside me. Or maybe she was just a master at pretending. I tried to keep things normal for her son's sake. He was an innocent in all of this, and the thought of disrupting his world, of taking away the stability I provided, was a constant, agonizing deterrent. I'd play with him, help him with his homework, read him bedtime stories, all while a cold fury simmered beneath my skin. It was exhausting, living a double life within my own home, pretending that everything was fine when my world was crumbling. My mind raced constantly, replaying every conversation, every suspicious detail. The deleted texts, the mysterious call, the sudden tiredness after work, the new guy, the flirting. It all spun in an endless loop, each piece of evidence cementing my conviction that she wasn't being honest with me. Her flimsy excuses about being afraid of my reaction, about shutting him down, they felt like insults now, a testament to how little she thought of my intelligence. I started observing her more closely, a detective in my own home. I watched her when she was on her phone, noticed how she'd quickly flip it over or angle it away from me if I walked into the room. I'd hear her laugh at her phone, a light, girlish sound that never seemed to be for me anymore. My imagination, once a tool for happy planning, became a tortured device, conjuring images of her and this guy, laughing, flirting, crossing lines I thought were sacred. The thought of her physical intimacy with someone else, after nearly 4 years of being with me, made my stomach churn. She denied anything physical, of course, but what did that even mean anymore? What did her words truly signify when her actions screamed deceit? The naps in the car became a recurring nightmare. 2, sometimes 3 hours, she claimed, after working an overnight shift. It sounded less like exhaustion and more like a carefully constructed alibi, a block of time she could use for something or someone else. I knew I couldn't keep living like this. The not knowing, or rather, the knowing but not having concrete proof, was destroying me. I needed more. I needed something undeniable, something that would cut through her lies and leave no room for doubt. But how do you get that when the person you live with is actively hiding it from you? I started by being more subtle. I'd casually ask about her workday, trying to glean any information about this guy she now claimed was just a coworker who was flirting. She'd give vague answers, always deflecting, never offering specifics. It was like pulling teeth, and each interaction left me feeling more frustrated, more alone. One evening after she'd fallen asleep, I found myself staring at her phone on the nightstand. My heart pounded in my chest. I knew it was wrong, a violation of trust, but what trust was left? My finger hovered over the screen. I knew her password. It was a date, one significant to us. I hesitated, battling with myself. Was I really going to do this? Become the suspicious boyfriend snooping through her private things? But then the image of that deleted call log, the 12 minutes, the sudden tiredness after work, flashed in my mind. The trust was already broken. She broke it. With a deep breath, I unlocked her phone. My hands were shaking slightly as I navigated to her messaging apps. I looked through her texts, searching for any trace of this new person. Nothing. She was good at this, or at least she thought she was. She de-wiped the slate clean. Then I checked her call log again. The name was still there, a ghost of a conversation, but no new calls to him. That didn't mean anything. People use different apps, different numbers, burner phones even when they're trying to hide something. I felt a surge of despair. What was I even doing? I was becoming exactly the kind of person I hated, driven by suspicion, consumed by paranoia. This wasn't me. But who was I anymore? This whole situation had stripped away my confidence, my peace, my sense of self. Days turned into weeks. The anniversary date, July 25th, loomed over me like a guillotine. It was supposed to be a celebration, a testament to our enduring love. Now it felt like a countdown to the definitive end of something I hadn't even fully acknowledged was over. I couldn't bring myself to make plans for it. Every time she mentioned it, casually asking if I had anything in mind, I'd just mumble something about being busy, about figuring it out later. She didn't push, which in itself felt like another red flag. The Sarah I knew would have been excited, making suggestions, planning something herself. This Sarah was distant, distracted. I started pulling away emotionally. I couldn't help it. Every touch felt tainted, every kiss a lie. She noticed, of course. She'd ask if I was okay, if anything was wrong. I'd just tell her I was stressed with work or tired, mirroring her own excuses back at her. The irony wasn't lost on me. It was a pathetic game we were playing, a slow dance of deception, and I was losing my mind in it. The advice I'd received online, the encouragement to stand up for myself, to leave, echoed in my head. But the logistics, the emotional entanglement, the thought of her son, it all weighed me down. I felt paralyzed, stuck in a terrible limbo. I was living with a woman I no longer trusted, in a home that no longer felt safe, haunted by the ghost of a 12-minute phone call and deleted messages. I thought about confronting her again, harder this time, demanding answers, but what good would it do? She just denied, deflect, and twist it back on me. I needed to be smarter. I needed to move beyond suspicion and into the realm of irrefutable proof. I knew it was going to be ugly, that the fallout would be immense, but I also knew I couldn't live with this gnawing uncertainty. One afternoon, while Sarah was at work, I decided to drive to her job. Not to confront her, not yet, but just to observe. I parked my car a few blocks away, out of sight, and waited. I felt like a spy, a pathetic, broken man reduced to stalking his own girlfriend. The shame was immense, but the need for truth was stronger. I watched as her shift ended. I saw her walk out of the building with a group of coworkers. I squinted, trying to pick out any male colleagues she might be lingering with. She said her goodbyes, then walked towards the employee parking lot. I watched her get into her car. And then she just sat there. For a few minutes, nothing. Then she reclined her seat, pulled out her phone, and started scrolling. No long nap. No sudden exhaustion. She just sat there casually for about 45 minutes before finally starting her car and driving away. It wasn't 2 or 3 hours, but it certainly wasn't her immediately leaving due to exhaustion either. It was just enough time for a quick rendezvous, a whispered conversation, a clandestine moment. It wasn't the smoking gun I craved, but it was another chip in her story, another piece of the puzzle that didn't fit. The next day, I started looking into her finances, quietly, discreetly. We shared a joint account for household expenses, but she also had her own separate checking account. I didn't have access to it, but I did have access to our joint account, and I knew her spending habits pretty well. I noticed small, unusual withdrawals, cash taken out at ATMs at odd hours, not matching her usual pattern. Nothing major, just enough to catch my eye. And then there were the times she'd go shopping alone, or say she was running errands and come back with very little, sometimes nothing, to show for it. I felt like I was piecing together a criminal case, not trying to save a relationship. The more I looked, the more I found, or at least the more I suspected. Every small anomaly, every deviation from her established routine became a blaring siren in my mind. My heart hardened with each new discovery, each fresh doubt. The image of the caring, supportive partner I thought I had, the woman I was building a future with, began to fade, replaced by a stranger, a deceiver. I was no longer just heartbroken. I was angry, furious. This wasn't just about a potential affair. It was about the disrespect, the lies, the manipulation. She had taken my trust, my generosity, my love for her son, and twisted it into a weapon against me. She had made me question my own sanity, my own perceptions. She had made me feel like an idiot, and now I was done feeling like an idiot. The trap I felt I was in, the obligation to her and her son, still weighed heavily, but something was shifting inside me. The paralysis was starting to lift, replaced by a cold, calculating resolve. I wasn't going to let her get away with this. Not without a fight, not without her knowing exactly what she had done, and not without a plan. I needed to expose her, not just to myself, but to her, and maybe, just maybe, to everyone else who mattered. The game had changed. I was no longer just grieving, I was strategizing. I was no longer just grieving, I was strategizing. The sting of betrayal had curdled into a cold, hard knot of determination in my gut. Sarah had made a fool of me, and I was going to make sure she understood the full weight of her deception. My first step was to secure my financial situation. We had a joint account, but most of the heavy lifting, the real money, came from my personal savings. I started quietly transferring funds from our shared account into my own, small amounts at a time, so as not to alert her. I wasn't trying to leave her destitute, not completely, but I was going to protect myself. The idea of her using my money, money I'd worked hard for, to fund clandestine meetings or gifts for another man, made my blood boil. It felt like a subtle act of reclaiming control, of asserting my independence. Next, I needed indisputable proof. Observing her at work had given me a piece of the puzzle, but it wasn't enough. I considered a private investigator, but that felt too extreme, too expensive, and too public, at least for now. I needed something I could do myself, something that would leave no doubt in my mind or hers. I started researching. It was amazing what you could find online if you knew where to look. I learned about phone forensics, about data recovery, about subtle ways to confirm suspicions without directly confronting someone and risking them covering their tracks even more effectively. My goal wasn't to hack her phone, not exactly, but to see what she thought she'd erased. I remembered a small, obscure program I'd once used years ago to recover some old photos from a damaged hard drive. It was a data recovery tool, designed to find deleted files that hadn't been completely overwritten. If her messages were truly deleted, there was a chance they were still lurking somewhere on her phone's memory. The thought of invading her privacy like this made me wince, but then I remembered her lies, her denials, her attempts to flip the blame on me. My conscience was clear. She'd already broken the sacred trust between us. The challenge was getting enough uninterrupted time with her phone. She rarely let it out of her sight, even when she was sleeping. I had to be careful, meticulous, and quick. I started by subtly noting her sleep patterns, the times she was most deeply asleep, the moments her phone was truly unguarded. I also needed to make sure I had a good reason for having her phone should she wake up unexpectedly. I came up with a plan. One night a few days before our anniversary, I waited until she was deep in sleep. I could tell by her slow, even breathing, the way her body was completely still. My heart hammered against my ribs, a drumbeat of nervous anticipation. I gently, almost imperceptibly, eased her phone from her grasp on the nightstand. It felt like I was handling a live grenade. I crept out of the bedroom, my bare feet silent on the carpet, and went to the living room. I had my laptop set up, the data recovery software already installed and ready to go. I plugged her phone into my laptop, the cable a thin, almost invisible tether between her world and mine. The software hummed to life, a quiet whir that sounded deafening in the stillness of the night. It took time, more time than I had, or at least more time than I felt comfortable with. The software scanned, searching through the digital detritus of her phone, looking for fragments of deleted data. Every minute felt like an hour. I kept glancing back at the bedroom door, half expecting her to appear, her eyes narrowed in suspicion. But the house remained silent, bathed in the soft glow of the laptop screen. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the software finished its scan. It presented a list of recovered files, a jumble of random data, images, and, thankfully, text messages. My hands trembled as I scrolled through the recovered messages, my breath catching in my throat. Most of them were benign, old conversations with friends, family. But then there it was. A thread of messages dated from late April, around the same time I'd found the deleted call. The name wasn't familiar, but the content. The content was a punch to the gut. It wasn't just flirting. It was more than that. Playful banter, suggestive emojis, plans to meet up after her shift, disguised as catching up or talking about work issues. He was clearly interested, and she was clearly reciprocating, not shutting him down at all. There were messages discussing her tiredness after work, but not because she was exhausted. Instead, they were thinly veiled excuses for why she couldn't immediately come home, allowing her time to meet him. One message specifically mentioned just a quick 20 minutes in the car before I head out, followed by a winking face emoji. 20 minutes. Not 2 or 3 hours of sleep. Just enough time for a quick illicit rendezvous. My blood ran cold. The proof I had so desperately sought, the undeniable evidence, was laid bare before me. The world tilted on its axis. Every lie she'd told, every flimsy excuse, every moment of doubt I'd endured coalesced into a blinding rage. It wasn't just flirting. It was a full-blown emotional affair, perhaps even physical, with her using her tiredness as a convenient cover. I quickly took screenshots of the most incriminating messages, saving them to a secure folder on my laptop. Then I carefully, painstakingly, deleted the recovered messages from her phone, ensuring no trace of my snooping was left behind. I needed to put everything back exactly as I found it. I couldn't afford for her to suspect anything. Not yet. The revenge had to be carefully orchestrated, meticulously planned. As I slipped her phone back onto the nightstand, my movements precise and deliberate, I felt a shift within me. The pain was still there, a dull ache, but it was now overshadowed by a chilling clarity. I was done being the naive, trusting boyfriend. I was done feeling like an idiot. Ryan Mitchell, the steady, planning man, was about to become something else entirely. The anniversary, July 25th, was just a few days away. It was supposed to be a celebration of our love. Instead, it would be the day I revealed her deception. I wouldn't yell, I wouldn't scream. I would be calm, collected, and utterly devastating. I wanted her to feel every ounce of the betrayal I had felt, every moment of the shame I had carried. I spent the next few days in a fog, going through the motions, pretending everything was normal. I still helped her son with his homework, still read him bedtime stories, my heart aching for him, knowing that his world, too, was about to be turned upside down. But my actions were no longer born of love for Sarah, but a quiet, simmering resolve. I was preparing for war. I also began quietly securing an apartment for myself. I didn't want to be homeless after this, and I definitely didn't want to stay under the same roof as her. I found a small, decent place not too far from my job, a temporary refuge where I could lick my wounds and rebuild my life. I paid the first month's rent and security deposit, all with money from my personal account, leaving no trace in our joint finances. The night before our anniversary, she casually asked, "So, any plans for tomorrow? Our 4-year anniversary, you know." Her voice was light, almost airy, as if she genuinely expected me to have some romantic gesture planned. A bitter laugh almost escaped my lips. "Yes, Sarah," I said, my voice carefully neutral. "I actually do have some plans, big plans." She smiled, a sweet, innocent smile that now looked utterly repulsive to me. "Oh, tell me, what have you got up your sleeve?" "You'll see," I replied, a chilling smile playing on my own lips. "It's going to be a very memorable anniversary. One we'll both remember for a long, long time." She looked at me, a flicker of confusion in her eyes, but she quickly dismissed it, assuming I was just being playfully mysterious. She had no idea at all. The morning of July 25th dawned bright and clear, a cruel contrast to the storm brewing inside me. I woke up early, feeling a strange mix of dread and exhilaration. This was it, the day of reckoning. I went about my morning routine as usual, made myself coffee, pretended to read the newspaper. Sarah was still asleep. I let her wake up naturally, letting her savor the last few moments of her blissful ignorance. When she finally stirred, she stretched languidly, then turned to me, a soft smile on her face. "Happy anniversary, babe," she murmured, leaning in for a kiss. I turned my head slightly, letting her kiss my cheek instead of my lips. Her smile faltered for a second, a tiny crack in her facade, but she quickly recovered. "Everything okay?" she asked, a hint of concern in her voice. "Perfect," I said, my voice smooth, devoid of any emotion. "In fact, I have a surprise for you, a little anniversary gift." Her eyes lit up. "Oh, what is it?" I got out of bed, walked over to my laptop, and opened the secure folder. I turned the screen to face her, the screenshots of her incriminating messages glowing brightly. "Happy anniversary, Sarah," I said, my voice a low, dangerous whisper. "This is your gift, the truth." Sarah's face, usually so composed, so practiced in its deceptions, crumpled. The color drained from her cheeks, leaving her skin a pasty white. Her eyes, wide with disbelief and horror, darted from the laptop screen to my face, then back again. The carefully constructed facade, the one she'd maintained for months, shattered right before my eyes. For a long moment she said nothing, utterly stunned into silence. It was a silence that spoke volumes, a confession more damning than any words she could have uttered. The air in the room grew heavy, thick with the weight of her guilt and my cold, hard truth. Then the silence broke, not with an apology but with a whimper. "Ryan," she choked out, her voice barely a whisper, as if the sound itself might crumble around her. "What? What is this?" "You know exactly what this is, Sarah," I replied, my voice devoid of warmth, a stark contrast to the easy affection I'd shown her just moments before. I pointed a finger at the screen, at the smiling emoji, the suggestive text, the blatant disregard for our 4 years together. This is your baby mama drama coworker. This is your tiredness after work. This is you, betraying every ounce of trust I had in you, every bit of love I gave you. Her eyes filled with tears, not tears of remorse, I realized, but tears of being caught. No, Ryan, please, it's not what you think, she pleaded, her voice rising in desperation. She tried to reach for my hand, but I pulled it away, repulsed by her touch. He was just flirting, I told you. I shut him down. These are old, out of context. I laughed, a short, bitter sound that held no humor. Out of context. Just a quick 20 minutes in the car before I head out, followed by a winking face. That's not flirting, Sarah. That's a rendezvous. That's a planned meetup. And it certainly isn't a 1 to 3 hour nap because you're too tired to drive home. I leaned closer, my voice dropping to a menacing whisper. You made me feel like an idiot for months. You took my support, my home, my love for your son, and you used it as a shield for your deceit. You made me question my own sanity. She started to cry harder, her body shaking with sobs. I'm sorry, Ryan, I truly am. I don't know why I did it. I was confused. I was stressed with work. Her excuses, once so believable, now sounded hollow and pathetic. They were the same old lies, just rehashed for a new, more dire situation. Save it, Sarah, I said, rising from the bed. My voice was calm, almost unnervingly so, even to my own ears. The time for excuses is over. The time for apologies is over. This isn't a conversation, it's a conclusion. Her head snapped up, her eyes wide with a fresh fear. What do you mean? Ryan, don't do this. Please think about us, think about my son. I have thought about your son, Sarah, I said, my voice hardening. And he deserves better than to live in a house built on lies. He deserves stability and honesty, something you apparently can't provide. I walked to the closet and started pulling out a duffel bag. I'm leaving today. Panic seized her. She scrambled out of bed, rushing towards me. No, Ryan, you can't. Where will I go? About the bills. What about everything? We have our anniversary plans. The anniversary plans were the truth, Sarah, I retorted, throwing some clothes into the bag. And you already got your gift. As for where you'll go, that's not my concern anymore. You had my support, my home, my commitment. You chose to throw it all away for 20 minutes in the car with some coworker. I paused, looking at her with a coldness that I didn't know I possessed. You broke it, Sarah. You broke us. You broke me. I had already set up the new apartment, a small, practical place that felt like a sanctuary after the emotional battlefield our home had become. I'd transferred the bulk of my personal savings, enough to sustain me for months, ensuring I wouldn't be left vulnerable. The joint account, which she mostly used for household expenses, still had enough for a short while, but it would dwindle quickly without my regular contributions. I wasn't going to completely pull the rug out from under her immediately, not for her son's sake, but I was also not going to be her personal ATM while she lived a lie. I would give her enough time to figure out her own situation, but not enough to take advantage of me further. I've already found a new place, I told her, my voice clipped and final. I'll be moving my things out over the next few days. You'll have a month to figure out your living situation. After that, I'll be taking my name off the lease and closing our joint account. You'll need to make other arrangements. Her face was a mask of disbelief, then fury. You can't do this to me, Ryan. You promised. You said you'd always be there for us. I promised to be there for a partner, Sarah, not a liar, I countered, zipping up my duffel bag. And you broke that promise first. My promises are conditional on honesty and trust, neither of which you valued. The hardest part was her son. He was at school, thankfully, spared the immediate ugliness of this confrontation. I knew I couldn't just disappear from his life. I loved that boy, and he was an innocent victim in all of this. I decided I would still visit him, still be a part of his life if Sarah allowed it. It wouldn't be the same, nothing would ever be the same, but I couldn't abandon him. I would approach Sarah about setting up visitation, ensuring he knew that my love for him hadn't changed, even if my relationship with his mother had. This was not his fault, and he would not be punished for his mother's actions. As I walked out of the bedroom, my duffel bag slung over my shoulder, Sarah stood there, tears streaming down her face, her pleas echoing behind me. But her words had lost their power over me. The pain was still a dull throb in my chest, but it was overshadowed by a profound sense of relief, of liberation. The heavy blanket of dread that had suffocated me for months had finally lifted. I drove to my new apartment, the silence in my car a welcome change from the turmoil of my mind. It was a small place, simple, but it was mine, and it was free from her lies. I unpacked my bag, the movements automatic, almost mechanical. As I looked around the empty rooms, a wave of exhaustion washed over me, not the fake kind Sarah used, but a genuine weariness from months of emotional combat. Over the next few days, I systematically moved my belongings piece by piece out of the house. Sarah was alternately enraged, sobbing, and attempting to manipulate me. Each time, I remained firm, unwavering. She tried to use her son as a bargaining chip, threatening to keep him from me, but I reminded her of my legal rights and my commitment to him, regardless of her actions. She eventually understood that I was not backing down. I initiated contact with her son's school counselor, explaining that there would be changes in his home life and emphasizing my continued presence in his life. I wanted a neutral third party to be aware, just in case Sarah tried to make things difficult. My final act, the one that truly brought a sense of poetic justice, came a week after I had completely moved out. Sarah had been calling, texting, trying to get me to reconsider, threatening me, begging me, all in turns. I had ignored most of her calls, only responding to texts regarding her son. Then I sent her one last message, short and to the point. "Remember that coworker who had baby mama drama?" I wrote. "I heard through a mutual friend that he's actually quite serious with his child's mother now. Apparently, they're even talking about getting back together. Funny how things work out, isn't it? Seems you weren't the only one he was having conversations with. Maybe you should find a more reliable source for your lunch break chats." I then blocked her number. The revenge wasn't about destroying her, not entirely. It was about reclaiming my dignity, my peace of mind. It was about showing her that her actions had consequences, that she couldn't lie and manipulate her way through life without facing the fallout. The knowledge that her little side fling had also used her, had also lied, was a bitter pill for her to swallow, a taste of her own medicine. Life in my new apartment was quiet, perhaps a little lonely at first, but it was honest. I started to rebuild, focusing on my work, reconnecting with friends I'd neglected during the turmoil of my relationship. I still saw Sarah's son regularly, taking him to the park, helping him with his school projects, being the stable male figure he deserved. Our relationship, thankfully, remained strong, a beacon of light in the aftermath of the storm. I learned a lot from Sarah. I learned the hard way about the importance of trusting my gut, of not letting emotional obligations trap me in an unhealthy situation. I learned that even the most carefully constructed lives can crumble under the weight of deceit. But most importantly, I learned that I was strong enough to walk away, to reclaim my life, and to find my own path towards genuine happiness, free from lies and betrayal. The scars remained, a reminder of the pain, but they were also a testament to my resilience. And for the first time in a long time, Ryan Mitchell, steady in planning, felt truly free. Life in my new apartment was quiet, perhaps a little lonely at first, but it was honest. I started to rebuild, focusing on my work, reconnecting with friends I'd neglected during the turmoil of my relationship. I still saw Sarah's son regularly, taking him to the park, helping him with his school projects, being the stable male figure he deserved. Our relationship, thankfully, remained strong, a beacon of light in the aftermath of the storm. I learned a lot from Sarah. I learned the hard way about the importance of trusting my gut, of not letting emotional obligations trap me in an unhealthy situation. I learned that even the most carefully constructed lives can crumble under the weight of deceit. But most importantly, I learned that I was strong enough to walk away, to reclaim my life, and to find my own path towards genuine happiness, free from lies and betrayal. The scars remained, a reminder of the pain, but they were also a testament to my resilience. And for the first time in a long time, Ryan Mitchell, steady in planning, felt truly free. The quiet of my new apartment became a balm to my raw nerves. I filled the silence with my own thoughts, with music, with the simple routines of a life that was finally, truly my own. The initial ache of loneliness gradually gave way to a profound sense of peace. I began to rediscover the man I was before Sarah, the man who knew his worth and trusted his own instincts. I started running again, something I'd let slide during the last few chaotic months. The rhythmic thump of my feet on the pavement, the burning in my lungs, the clear focus on the path ahead, it was therapeutic. It was a physical manifestation of the emotional journey I was on, moving forward, one step at a time, leaving the wreckage behind. My friends, who had patiently listened to my agonized ramblings for months, were a true lifeline. We'd get together for beers, for basketball games, and slowly I started to laugh again, a genuine, unburdened laugh that resonated deep within me. They didn't judge, they just supported, and that unwavering friendship was a gift I cherished. But the most important constant in my new life was Sarah's son. True to my word, I made sure to stay present. Sarah, after her initial anger and attempts at manipulation had faded into a sullen resignation, eventually agreed to a visitation schedule. It wasn't always easy. Sometimes her bitterness would seep through, but I focused on the boy, on our time together. We'd go to the children's museum, the zoo, the local park. I'd help him build towering Lego castles, listen intently to his stories about school, and read him his favorite books just like before. His innocent joy was a powerful antidote to the lingering pain of betrayal. I didn't talk about Sarah's actions with him, of course. He was too young, and it wasn't his burden to carry. I just made sure he knew, with every hug, every shared laugh, every patient explanation, that my love for him was unconditional and unchanging. He was a constant reminder of the good that had come from that difficult relationship, a silver lining in a very dark cloud. Over time, the sharp edges of the betrayal began to dull. The replays of deleted texts and whispered lies grew less frequent. The anger, once a consuming fire, cooled into a quiet understanding. I realized that Sarah's actions weren't a reflection of my worth, but a reflection of her own character, her own insecurities. She was the one who had to live with her choices, with the consequences of her deceit. And in the end, her choices had cost her far more than she could have imagined. She had lost a stable, loving partner, a provider, and a chance at a genuinely honest future. The last message I sent, the one about her coworker getting back with his baby mama, wasn't meant to inflict endless suffering but to offer a final, bitter taste of her own medicine. It was a stark reminder that deceit often breeds deceit, and that those who play games often find themselves played. I never heard back from her after that, and I didn't expect to. The silence was another gift, another layer of peace. Looking back, the man who frantically searched for his phone that April morning, the man consumed by doubt and fear, felt like a distant memory. I was still Ryan Mitchell, steady and planning, but I was also stronger, wiser, and more attuned to my own needs. I had learned to trust my gut, to prioritize my peace, and to walk away from anything that threatened my integrity. The journey had been painful, a crucible that had tested my limits, but I had emerged from it, not unscathed but ultimately unbroken. I was free from the lies, free from the manipulation, and free to build a future based on honesty, respect, and genuine love. And that, I realized, was the truest revenge of all.